What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the ABJ Presents Tornado Tag, the history of the Macho Man Randy Savage, ABJ BP Burke on the call.
Dig it, yeah.
It's
gonna be frequent today. There was the Dusty episode was like, there's not gonna be. I'm gonna try to do a moratorium on Dusty impressions. There's no moratorium today. No, sir.
No. We're gonna do as many as we possibly can until our voice hurts.
Oh, it's good. It's not gonna take long.
Yeah. So we'll be doing the history of the Macho Man Randy Savage, but we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this upcoming week of wrestling and just in general. We have a lot, even not on the football side, not even on the wrestling side of things. Our football teams are doing pretty well.
Yeah, well, for now, hopefully that lasts.
I got two of them playing in interesting positions this week. I got my one team who just got 12 wins and going to make a playoff run. And then my other team's going to be playing my other hometown team in college football to find out who goes to the national championship. So it's
my favorite schools don't have great college football teams. Temple barely has a football team. Memphis has seen better days.
Yeah.
I
wears a lot of Satan t-shirts. It's weird. I'm a Notre Dame fan.
Yes, very much so.
I'm a Satanist who loves some college, some
Satanist
good old
who loves
boy,
the Catholic college. Yeah.
It's a weird thing. It hasn't shook me yet, you know. So
big week for wrestling too. Big week for wrestling.
So I watched a couple matches of the oh my god, what was it called? The first Japanese wrestling show that happened this week.
There was Wrestle Kingdom. There was
Wrestle Kingdom. I made it through three-quarters of the Rumble and passed out.
Rambo. It's called a Rambo.
The Rambo. Yeah, I made it to that, passed out. Then I tuned into the Wrestle Dream show. Cannot believe Athena didn't win. That's insane to me. And then I watched the Kenny match and then fell asleep.
I saw none of the Japanese stuff. It's a little outside of my schedule now. I'm not one for watching wrestling when it's not live. It's hard for me to go back and watch stuff that has already happened. So if I'm not going to be there for it live, I usually will just like kind of read it. And if there's something I really can't miss, but it's such a tough time right now for New Japan. New Japan is in this weird spot where all the people that helped make that big run. Tanahashi is winding down now. He's old. He's given everything he can, body wise, to the professional wrestling, and he's now just moving on to that executive role. And Nakamura's in WWE, and Okada's in AEW, and Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega in AEW. So the people who really were the ones who crested that tide are either starting to age out. Naito is still there, but Naito isn't what Naito was 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah, it's a really interesting time where you're now kind of seeing who's going to be that next guy of these. I know they have their new Three Musketeers with Omino and the other guys, who's going to be the one to emerge. Who's going to be?
There's only one problem with this though. So two big stars had two pretty good matches. You had Mina versus Mercedes Moné, who is the most paid female wrestler in the world right now. And she goes out and has a match a couple months ago with Stephanie DeLander. And Valkyrie. Had a little medicine before the podcast started. Valkyrie, and shows that, all right, is it Mercedes just that good at wrestling, or you're giving really good people an opportunity to work with a girl who sells really? Like, I don't hate Mercedes, right? She's not my favorite wrestler, but what Mercedes does well is sell. And just her being the top heel that also wants to dominate as the strong heel, she's having a hard time finding this heel role, because either you play chicken shit or you play I'm better than you and I outsize you and I kill you, and she doesn't fit into that role.
She just needs to do exactly everything she did in NXT before she was on the main roster. Just do that. Yeah. She was such a good heel when she was in NXT.
She doesn't want to cheat to win. So, and then when the match is over, she wants to be revered as the babyface. She wants to show respect, and then she cuts a promo the next week and she's an asshole again. She's not locking into what she wants to be. But she goes out there and wrestles Stephanie. Stephanie gets a huge contract because of it. Like, she becomes a bidding war because people are like, she's good, we need to snatch her up.
Yeah.
Mina goes out and just puts on a. Honestly, Mina looked amazing wrestling. Mercedes, sold for her, did everything she can, but Mina showed she's more than just a funny girl who shakes her boobs. Like, she put a great match on.
Oh yeah.
And then Kenny Omega, another one. You're like, Kenny Omega is one of the best in the world, and he goes out and wrestles this kid that now people are like, yo, Gabe Kidd, that there's something here. This guy's really, really good. And I think Gabe Kidd is probably someone that some companies are going to be like, let's get him out of Japan.
Yeah, and that is what New Japan is now fighting against. That it's oddly similar to what happened to ECW back in the 90s, where okay, somebody starts to really rise to prominence in your company. Now you have these two other companies that have way deeper pockets than you.
Yeah,
TKO and Tony Khan are going to beat Bushiroad in the bidding war almost every time.
Yeah,
and it makes it hard when you have these guys who you have to then churn out guys so fast that they can't keep up with you. But that
and then,
also
and then
gets
if they turn
tougher.
around and put a NXT in your country, and
Right.
your NXT probably pays as much as your actual wrestling does.
Yeah, but that also gets tougher because now WWE has 3 rosters to fill, and they're not going to skimp on the SmackDown roster because SmackDown's 3 hours now, Raw's 3 hours now, NXT has 2 hours on network television. They're running 8 hours of first run programming every month between those 3 shows. Plus, now there's this talk about possibly NXT Level Up is done, but is it going to be NXT Evolve with Gabe Sapolsky in charge? And what's that going to look like? And then AEW, even though they haven't really added any TV hours, AEW doesn't budget out their talent like most wrestling companies do. It's not, okay, we need X amount of guys. It's, oh, I want that guy, I'm going to sign him, and then I'll use him, twice in 6 months.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's wild. New Japan commentator gets, they don't know if it's a storyline bid or if it's real, but I guess he said some unfavorable things about Tony Khan.
It seems like a work that may have turned into a shoot where they maybe said, hey, do something to kind of stoke a little rivalry to make Forbidden Door mean something, and then and this can happen. Like you're working, and then all of a sudden it's like,
I've never said anything on commentary that offends people. BP, how dare you?
But no, like it's a tricky situation to be in because unless you're being directed exactly what to say, you never know if somebody's going to take something the wrong way.
Imagine that. And BP, we've been doing commentary for quite some time on the independent scene. How many notes do we get?
It depends on the person, but usually they're fairly, unless you go seek them out.
Averagely, if you don't seek them out, how many times does the promotion tell you what they want being said on commentary?
Very rarely. Very rarely.
Almost never. Yeah. And we're trying to improv and also for 3 hours, and also try to build our brand and commentary as well. Like, so I hate when people like, make it about me and my match only. Suck my dick. I drove just as far to be part of the show as you. Don't care. Yeah, the only reason I said that is because I was tagged in a post saying that this guy buries AEW as I bury Smashmaster Wrestling. And I said, how dare you? I've never said anything negative about the roster of Smashmaster, just maybe some of the other people there. Just get it right if you're going to trash me,
And it's all a thing where it's when you lose sight of, hey, we're all just trying to put out the best product possible. That's when
100%. Yeah,
stuff like this happens, and that's also when you don't know what that sore spot's going to be, and if you're calling Tony Khan a money mark and you're not clearing that with Tony Khan beforehand, you're running a risk. Like rich and powerful people tend to have very fragile egos. One of them's going to be president soon. So one of them owns Twitter. So
money marks are proud to be money marks, but they also don't like when you say, hey, the only reason 90% of the people like you in this business is because you're money.
No, nobody's proud to be a money mark. Every money mark thinks they're Vince McMahon. Nobody's proud to be a money mark. They think they're visionaries.
Hey, fun fact, you actually don't have friends in this business. They either they know you have money and you're a mark. You've been marked by the boys, and they're gonna act like your best friend because you have deep pockets. You really don't have friends in this business.
It's easy to get yes men around you too. So I'm sure one of the issues, like anybody that's listening to this in any any length of time
Industry.
knows I'm fairly critical of AEW's booking. Incredible talent roster, incredible wrestling. I think the booking is very haphazard and shoddy. I think they could use a little bit of quality control, but I don't know, because I've never been in a booking meeting for AEW and I never will be. I don't know how many people are going to Tony Khan and saying, "Hey, this is bad. We can't do this," because hey, you know, that song's 42 years old. Don't use it as a theme for Dynamite. Stuff like that. It's, I don't know how often that's happening, because if you don't want to be the person that is overly critical of the guy who signs your paychecks.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that old saying of, well, it's a newer spin on an older saying, the squeaky wheel is the first one that gets replaced.
Yeah. Yep. I'm always that goddamn squeaky wheel. I gotta figure that out. I got a problem making too much damn noise. Yeah, so that's a little bit going on. Raw debuted on Netflix this week. What did you overall think of that?
It was a very modern WWE show, for the good and for the bad. The spectacle, production values, everything was sleek, everything had meaning, everything told a story, even if that story was, hey, remember that whole story from last year? Forget it. It never happened. Everybody's happy and friends now. Although I guess that
You're
is
talking about the bloodline, right?
I'll talk about The Rock.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The Rock just
I'm more specifically talking about The Rock and Cody.
Yeah, walking out and doing the whole "I'm gonna kill you," and now he's like, "Hey, bud, love
ya."
ya.
But I guess
Roman, here's some peppers.
The rumor that's emerging now is that The Rock is probably not going to be at WrestleMania. So, with that being said, the big thing there is going to be more, okay, what are we setting up now? So who knows what they're setting up now? Is it going to be Cody Roman 3? Is it going to be the first time a match main event WrestleMania 3 years in a row? Or is it going to be something else entirely? Is it going to be Cody and CM Punk? CM Punk got a big win. Who knows?
Yeah.
But on the downside, you know, there's other things. It was a 3+ hour show with 4 matches. It's like there's no happy medium. There's no 2.5 to 3 hour show with 8 matches. One company wants to do 3 hours and 4 matches. One company wants to do 6 hours and 15 matches. There's no happy medium.
Yep. But good thing, you know, it's amazing when someone tells a long story that has intertwined between tag teams and being friends and then enemies and then stealing each other's boyfriends and then working your way up to tell this story and finally reclaiming your championship, just so the Undertaker can come out and do a lap around the ring and pose with you.
Yeah.
Have recently in times, have we seen actually the Undertaker show up in a storyline he has nothing to do with? Have we seen that recently?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's happening quite some time now. Huh?
Well, at least this time, Rey didn't get chokeslammed. Like Ron Breaker had to eat a chokeslam when he went to NXT.
Yeah.
So there's some there. It could have been worse.
The
It could
Rock
have been
ate
a lot worse
too.
Yeah,
at Mania when he just showed up for no reason there.
I think we all know that wasn't the original plan.
Yeah, but
I think we all know that Steve Austin didn't want to come, and that's fine. They can't make Steve Austin come. And if you can't get Steve Austin, Mick Foley is probably not. I mean, Mick Foley's looking good now. Maybe Mick Foley's okay now. Look,
he
Mick Foley's the dude.
A wrestling show. Did you
OVW, yeah, dude, love. He was moving around great. Got out of the ring really well. Was through a few shots with Jack Vaughn. Good for Mick Foley. I'm glad to see Mick Foley up and about. Yeah. But the whole idea with that whole ending was, all right, we're doing Endgame. We're doing Avengers Endgame, and everybody's going to come flying out of the whatever. And it's going to stack and stack and stack and stack and stack. And it's just so happened they can't get Steve Austin. All right, we'll get the Undertaker, fine. And if we can't let that go, then whatever, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But and then it wasn't even the exclamation point. The exclamation point was Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
Because that was germane to the story. But yeah, with this one, I understand the idea behind it. This was not a show, and this is just what WWE does. This was not a show for wrestling fans. This show was written and designed to the minute for people who have Netflix probably haven't watched a lot of wrestling. Oh, WWE Raw. I remember Raw. I watched Stone Cold. I watched John Cena. I remember this. I'll check it out. Why not? Oh, Raw's on Netflix. I'm just flipping around. Oh, look at that. That's cool.
They put a lot of old history stuff on there too. A lot of old Raw matches and stuff.
And it was, but this specific show was very star-studded. It was loaded with celebrities. It was all about spectacle. And I get the idea was people know who The Undertaker is. The Undertaker is, if you know even a little bit about wrestling beyond just like Hulk Hogan, John Cena, The Rock, if you know a little bit more about it than that, you may know who The Undertaker is. He's one of the more famous wrestlers of the past 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is we're going to use him to make Rhea Ripley seem important. And it was more like, see, I would have done a little different. Some people were saying like, oh, Rhea should have gotten on the motorcycle. I would have The Undertaker get off the motorcycle and have Rhea drive it off. Like, this is yours 100%. Now. It's your yard.
Her getting on the back of it is like, oh, I'm here, saved by the man.
No, no. It's your yard now. That should have been the message.
That should have been. That's exactly it. Actually, what they probably should have done, adding to that point, is he should have came out, and as he's about to take off to do his lap, he just stops and looks and gets off the bike, and Rhea does the lap around the ring, almost like she's marking her territory.
Yeah,
and then she gets to the top, holds up the fist. Taker holds up the fist. He walks out. She drives away.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
But I mean, that wasn't the worst legend cameo of the day.
Yeah. Everyone hates Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, well, Rick Springfield is a very powerful man in Hollywood. He was on General Hospital. He had a hit song in the 80s, and Jimmy Hart made a song called "Eat Your Heart Out, Rick Springfield," and he never forgave him. And he got all of his Hollywood buddies to boo Jimmy Hart on Raw last night.
Did you see the Pat McAfee bit?
I didn't.
They had the guy dressed up as Hogan, and he's like, that's the first thing he said. And he goes, "It sucks, brother. Jimmy Hart comes out there with that stupid haircut, half-ass waving an American flag, and everyone's booing the hell out of him, thinking it's me."
Oh, what a topic we have today to just take. If only we had a topic we were planning out today, we would have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to take pot shots at fucking Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Do you think WWE hears that and goes, maybe we should get out of this beer deal?
I don't know if it might be too late for that.
Oh, I looked it up. The company making that beer only makes his beer. Like they're a brand. It's not like El Segundo,
right?
Yeah, it's not like El Segundo who makes 700 different beers and they also make a Stone Cold beer. Like this company was only founded to make the Hulk Hogan beer.
Yeah, I mean, look,
I will openly say this: I will never drink it.
Look, there's an audience for that beer, and it ain't us.
No,
it ain't us.
No, we're not part of the MAGA powers.
No.
I hope they explode, though. I can't wait for I'm waiting for the MAGA powers explosion.
Look,
I bet it's better than it's going to be better than what we talk about.
When you get away from LA, you get away from the Northeast, and you go down to the Gulf of America, that's where it's going to sell. That's where it's going to sell a little more.
All right. We're 20 minutes in. That's pretty much it for this week in wrestling. BP, we'll plug our stuff towards the end.
Some updates here. We already on NXT today. We have Julia winning the NXT Women's title.
All three women's championships changed in 2025.
Lexis King winning the Heritage Cup. And we're about to have Eddie Thorpe, if he's in there because we did an injury angle, Obafemi and Trick Williams for the NXT title.
There you go.
And The Rock's there.
And The Rock showed up. Yeah.
But they don't have the madness. No, they don't.
No, they do not. Well, let's get into the topic of the night. BP, I know you have your notes and you've done tons and tons of research on this one.
Yes, I've done about, let's see, when did I start watching wrestling? I've done decades of research on this one.
Yeah, it's not a secret. This is probably your favorite wrestler.
Yeah, it's funny because when All in London happened, I'm like, when Danielson won that title, like Savage second now but it's a little different because you have the guy you grew up with, and then you have the guy who becomes your favorite later, and the guy you grew up with is always kind of your favorite. and that's
Yeah.
Randy Savage. That's Randy Savage. For me.
Mine goes Randy, Sean, and then insert a few other people here and there. Like,
Yeah,
but I started as a Macho Man guy, and then became a Sean guy.
yeah. So, yeah, Randy Savage, first wrestling show I was ever at, back in, I'm going to age myself here, 1988, at the Philadelphia Spectrum, the summer of 1988. The main event is the WWF champion Macho Man Randy Savage against that no good Ted DiBiase in a steel cage. And it's funny, I saw that match later on YouTube. I haven't seen I saw that whole event because the old Spectrum House shows for a while, they were on a network called Prism, which was like an HBO type channel, but it was only for Philly. Like, and it would show like Flyers games and Phillies games and Sixers games, and it would show the wrestling from the Spectrum. And the fans were chanting something at DiBiase that I shan't repeat on this. I shan't repeat on this show because it begins with an F, and I'm not going to say it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're calling him that?
Yeah, they're calling DiBiase that. Yeah.
The homophobic one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were calling him a fucker. I would say that.
Okay. What other F word can it be?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. I didn't think
it was Philly. It's Philly. What do you expect?
That's very true.
They didn't set him on fire. Bad things happen there.
Yeah, totally.
No cheese. Just steak this week. No cheese. No cheese in Philly this week. Anyway, so as Stephen Chambers already mentioned in the chat, wrestling was not the first go for Randy Savage, even though he's a second generation guy. Randy Savage is, of course, the son of Angelo Poffo, who was I'm not going to say a huge star. He was never like NWA champion level or anything like that, but he was a very successful wrestler in the 50s and 60s. And he had two sons that wound up getting into wrestling as well. Of course, there's Randy, his older son, and then Lanny Poffo, the genius. And boy, did his sons have distinctive voices. Like,
yeah.
Have you ever heard, unfortunately, Lanny Poffo, also no longer with us, but he talked like this. I'm the genius, Lanny Poffo.
Header did a really good Poffo.
Yeah. The brothers Beverly. And also a very flexible man. Very flexible man. Incredibly flexible man. That's all we'll say.
He didn't leave his house very often. No, he didn't have to.
No. I wouldn't either. But anyway, this is about Randy, not Lanny, and his flexibility and his ability to reach places many people can't reach with many things.
Yeah.
But so Randy and Lanny grew up within wrestling. They're actually from Ohio, Illinois, Downers Grove, Illinois. Well, I think they wound up going to other places too. Angelo's a wrestler. They're jumping around. I believe they were in like Shaker Heights, Ohio for a little bit. But Randy starts with baseball. Randy Poffo. There's actual cards of Randy Poffo when he was, I think he was initially drafted from high school into the St. Louis Cardinals organization and wound up in the Cincinnati Reds organization. There are cards of Randy Poffo for the Cincinnati Reds. He was a catcher, and he never made it to the big leagues. He was I think the highest he made, other than like maybe spring training, was single A, which is like way down there. It is of what they call affiliated baseball. It's the lowest level of affiliated baseball. It's single A, double A, triple A. Like, I'm trying to think of places around here, like not the Reading Phillies, not the Iron Pigs. They're like Reading Phillies or double A, and the Iron Pigs are triple A. I believe like the Williamsport Crosscutters are single A. The Lakewood Blue Claws are single A. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of Randy Poffo cards. I don't know which ones are legit or not, but they are not expensive.
No, he wasn't really a notable baseball player.
But you would think like an old Macho Man baseball card where it's not Macho Man would be worth something. You're not spending more than $15.
And he wasn't quite as big as he was when he was a wrestler. And he winds up leaving baseball primarily because it wasn't really progressing the way he wanted to. And he also had a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
So he winds up joining the family business, and the family business is pro wrestling. And he is working with his dad, working with his brother.
They didn't want Randy no more, so Randy went out and smashed all of his baseball bats against the old trunk of the tree out there.
There was a story though about, I guess one of the things he would do to work on his swing is he would just hang up a tire on a rope and swing the bat at a tire. And some guy he was in the minors with wound up becoming like a hitting coach and would use that technique that he learned from Randy Savage.
Yeah.
But the migration happens in his early 20s to professional wrestling, and this is the territory days. They're going all around. At some point, they go to Hawaii, and there's an old, and this is a Lanny story. There's an old wrestler that you don't really hear a lot about, Pampero Firpo. He was the wild bull of the Pampas, Pampero Firpo. He was an old heel, like a wild man heel, like almost like Bruiser Brody, but more wild. Bruiser Brody was the intelligent monster. And Pampero Firpo, he talked like this. I'm Pampero Firpo, the mad bull of the Pampas. I'm Pampero Firpo. And Randy heard that, and he just put his own little thing on it. Yeah. And Lanny said, I never heard my brother's real voice again.
Yeah, it disappeared.
Yep, he's like that. Randy just goes, "Yep, that's my voice now. That's how I'm gonna talk. My entire life is like that."
Do you think there's a point in a psychology way that where he legit doesn't remember his actual voice anymore?
Possibly.
If you do something so long and you live a gimmick so long, it could easily rewire your brain. I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Look, there's a lot of people that have trouble telling fantasy from reality, dude.
Even on the independent scene.
Yeah. So I was talking about somebody specific that got booted out of the building last night. Yeah. So yeah, that becomes like his voice. And it's funny you say that. I listened to an episode of This American Life on NPR, and they had one of their producers, it was about like kind of those type of delusion things. One of the producers was talking about how, like, when he was in high school, he was like a big Anglophile. He was really into like Masterpiece Theater and Doctor Who and all this British stuff. And eventually he just started talking with a British accent all the time.
Because he consumes so much of it.
And his mom's like, "You're not British. We're not British. You know, you're American. That's not how you talk." And he would insist, like, "This is my voice. I'm British. This is how I talk." And he did it for like 2 years. He went to like psychiatrists and stuff. And then he looks back and was like, "Yeah, I don't even know why I did it now." So yeah, maybe Randy Savage was doing something.
That's why I won't watch Japanese animation. I don't want to offend people, because all of a sudden I start going like, "Oh my god," just like how you narrate like in an anime. Like,
how great would it be to do an entire? It would be hard to stay in character to do an entire show of commentary. He's building power.
We'll be canceled. Because what's that like that? Like with the sparkle, like the sound effect. Yeah. Man, that's great. Yeah, ABJ would go ooh woo. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
ABJ loves Slim Jims. You're damn right I do. If anybody wants to buy something from me for my background, because of this topic, they make 2 Slim Jim holders for Macho Man Randy Savage. They're each like $300 each. But if you want to buy them for me, I'll take them and put them in the background. I want them real bad. I actually go to my local gas station every day and be like, "Please, God, the day you want to throw that away, I just want it. Please let me have it." And they're like, "We can't give it to you." And I go, I'll pull somebody in our local area. They robbed a local gas station, came in, masks and everything, and the only thing they stole was the Macho Man Slim Jim holder. Right.
And it wasn't me, because I was with you that whole night.
Yeah, and I was with you too, so we both check out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we were both.
That's a legit story. Someone robbed a local gas station, didn't ask for $1, just took the Macho Man Slim Jim holder. Not a joke.
That's amazing.
I wish we were kidding.
That's incredible. I remember that. That is incredible.
Yeah. But all right, so he's in the family business, and he's in the
family business.
He got his gimmick.
The gimmick comes a little later, yeah, and the gimmick comes from, well, the nickname comes from the Village People song, Macho Man. Like that just used to be how things happened. Like Nature Boy was a song. They would just take stuff from movies and songs, and like that was your thing. Like Demolition and the Road Warriors. It's from the movie Road Warrior.
Did he dance like this when he came out?
I don't believe he did. No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. But what happens is,
oh yeah, this is a stick up, brother.
I don't want your money. I just want the Slim Jim case. Yeah.
You can keep the Slim Jims. I just want the holder. I don't want to steal actual product.
Look, there's a lot of carcinogens in the Slim Jims. I just want the case. Yeah. I just want the case.
That's great.
And so things aren't moving the way Angelo Poffo would like. And at this point, there's a lot of... Oh, we got some breaking news here. Looks like, unless there's a dusty finish, new NXT champion.
Obafemi,
new NXT champion.
Nice.
He's a star. He's a star. Star and a half. So Angelo Poffo is starting to get a little discouraged, and there's a lot of strife going on in it's not even the Tennessee territory. It's such a huge territory that it's becoming sub-territories. We've covered this on old shows. I think that when Jerry Jarrett passed, we covered this, where there's Goulas's Nick Goulas is running part of the territory. He's pushing his son George, who is killing the town, killing the territory. And then on the other side, you have Jackie Fargo, Jerry Jarrett, and they're really, really, really thriving. But as Goulas is on his way out and Jarrett's thriving, Angelo Poffo's like, I don't think you're really using my boys that well. I don't like what we're doing here. And he goes outlaw. He starts his own company called ICW. It's less focused on Memphis and more focusing a little bit farther up in the territory. It's focusing on Kentucky and some of northern Tennessee and that type of area. And this is like a legit war. Like a war to the point where they say like guys like Bill Dundee and Randy Savage would just keep guns in their car, and like Bill Dundee almost shot Randy Savage at a gym once. Like this is like the late 70s, early 80s, and there is strife. There is a lot of like, if these two companies, these two groups are in the same town at the same time, it's going to be a big, big, big problem. A big, big, big problem. But the ICW show is where Randy really starts to come into his own, and this is where kind of tape trading is getting to the early to mid 80s. Tape trading starting to become a thing. Some people like VCRs are not widespread; they're not like all over the place, but they're starting to become enough of a thing where some of the earliest adopters of recordable VHS machines were wrestling fans and wrestlers. Mm-hmm. They say Playboy Buddy Rose had one of the first ones. And a lot of the Portland wrestling tapes that exist today are from Playboy Buddy Rose's personal collection. Now they're like 6th, 7th generation dubs. Yeah. And Memphis, the same thing. And I know it's a guy that's not very popular for some people, you included, but another one of the early adopters to that VHS stuff was Jim Cornette.
Yeah. And Jim Cornette I respect Jim Cornette as a wrestling historian.
I get it.
And all that. I'm not a fan of the way he, I guess, his fan he's creating a fan base that essentially just trashes what we now like any modern wrestling that he's not I know he's a shtick. He's doing it 100% a shtick. Like he looks for a Kenny Omega match because he knows if he talks about Kenny Omega, people are going to listen because they want to hear him trash Kenny Omega. But these fans take that Cornettisms and legit think that Kenny Omega is not a good performer because Cornette's doing a bit, because they're too dumb to know the difference between the two.
Do you think there's also a chance that maybe they just don't like Kenny Omega?
I think there's a lot of really people who legit wait for negative. It's not even just Cornettes in the world. I'm not shitting on it, but JD from New York's another one. There's a lot of wrestling content creators who only focus on the negative and the horrible things in the business and how they think that Monday Night Raw wasn't good because they could have done better. And people tune into that and they agree and think that they know more of the business or they would have a better understanding of it. And they don't. They just link into this negativity pool.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, the internet is a cesspool of negativity, so
Yeah.
that is true. But on a positive side,
Yeah.
let's talk about the historical contribution here. That's why I brought up Jim Cornette. Even before he was involved in the business, and at this point, I think he was starting to get involved. But he would. They talk about him and Kenny Bolin, who wound up being a manager in OVW. And they would point their antenna this way to get wrestling from one place, and point their antenna this way to get Memphis TV. And so tapes started to circulate of Randy Savage, and it's like, whoa! It's almost like what people see of Kenny Omega now, like, or like a Will Ospreay, like, well, this guy's doing some crazy stuff,
And
and I
he's
mean,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, crazy stuff back then is like his big high spots would have been the flying elbow, the
Jump off the apron to the
jump off
outside.
the apron with the double axe handle, jumping over the top rope and dropping the guy's throat across it as you go over the top rope. So things like that are like, whoa, this guy's insane. Like nobody does stuff like this.
Mhm.
Like and yeah, the character is starting to come together. He's starting to come up with this Macho Man thing where he's like just this, I'm the epitome of manliness. I'm
not bearing the lead here though, but is this where he starts taking pop shots at another wrestler?
Which one?
Where essentially their whole mission statement is to trash Jerry Lawler and try
Yes.
to goat
Yes.
them into a match or goat them into a partnership, essentially.
Yeah, so it was basically like either we're going to try to overrun Memphis, or more likely we're just going to eventually strike a deal. And that's what winds up happening. But another thing winds up happening while this is going on, and that is that while Randy Savage is at the gym one day, he runs into a Kentucky native, Elizabeth Hewlett, who becomes a huge part of, excuse me, no, I said that wrong. Elizabeth Hewlett.
I just realized the horrible placement of our 2 weekends in a row. We're doing Savage, then Luger. I just realized that.
Oh, man. Yes. Holy, I did not realize that.
Yeah, as you're clicking, I'm like, oh, Elizabeth, Lex Luger, that's next week. Oh,
but
no.
We have to do like a 5-minute micro episode about the lawyer she married in between.
Yeah.
I have to find out about him. Did he have lust in his eyes?
Yeah. Oh, he sure did.
Lust in his eyes.
And stuff in his nose.
Yeah. Don't like it. Not a little bit. So at this point, they're not like an on-camera thing.
Yeah.
Elizabeth is involved with ICW. She's an announcer on their TV, which I would love to see that because she was horrible as a personality. Like she was great at standing in the corner and clapping and looking elegant. That was Elizabeth's strength. Anything else, Elizabeth was, and that one bump she took was sick when Savage came through the rope and just landed on her. But other than that, Elizabeth was a limited performer. Like, especially when you look at somebody like Sherry, who could do it all. She could talk, she could wrestle, she could do everything. Elizabeth could clap and look proper, look elegant. And that was really,
she was like Princess Diana of wrestling.
Right, yeah. Yeah, she was the first lady of wrestling.
Yeah.
That was a legit thing, even though like the other person they would say that about is Missy Hyde. Again, Missy Hyde, an infinitely better performer than Elizabeth. And now she is you see she's the wise woman.
For Cardona?
No, for MJF. She said,
oh, really?
She said that all the Jewish wrestlers got together and they've said MJF is their tribal chief and she's going to be his wise woman.
Oh, okay. I'm into it.
So I don't think it's going to be a thing in AEW. I think that she's making a joke.
Yeah.
But it's still good. So that's where the Elizabeth and Savage thing links up, and Savage and Lanny Poffo team up quite a bit. And even though he's using the name Randy Savage, they do a thing where Ron Garvin outs them as being brothers. And the reason he took that name is when he's first training how to wrestle, Angelo Poffo was in Georgia at the time, and the guy who trained him, and Ole Anderson, who was running the company at that point, running the territory, he said Randy couldn't be Randy Poffo because somebody that wrestles like a savage like he does, Poffo wasn't a good name for him. So they just ran with Randy Savage because he wrestled like a savage, wrestled like a wild man. So long story short, they do wind up making the deal with Memphis. ICW shuts down, and we get a huge Savage Lawler feud. This is big money. They're selling out that Mid-South Coliseum Monday after Monday after Monday. It is a license to print money. And when that kind of runs its course, Randy and Lanny go against the Rock and Roll Express, and it's another hot feud, and they're still packing the Mid-South Coliseum. And this is the point you got to remember. Memphis is, as a territory, that Memphis TV show, it was getting Super Bowl level ratings every Sunday morning on WMC TV. Like of every 10 TVs that were on, 7 of those TVs in Memphis were on Memphis wrestling. It was an event.
Yeah, Jerry Lawler was no joke.
It wasn't just Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee. It was the whole package. The Fabulous Ones. But yeah, Jerry Lawler was the centerpiece. But sometimes Jerry Lawler would, go away for a few months, and they would still run strong. They wouldn't run as strong. Memphis was just, it was a really well booked territory, especially when Jerry Jarrett was booking. Jerry Lawler could get a little silly, and that's when you have like Tagar, the Lord of the Volcano, and things like that. Cowabunga, the Ninja Turtle later on. But the Savage Lawler feud is just money. You have 2 Hall of Fame level stars, 2 first ballot Hall of Fame wrestlers. And there's this thing where they know they legitimately do not like each other. And there's this history of them saying for years that the other one is doesn't even belong in professional wrestling. And people know it. And people believe it. It's like every great wrestling story. It has that element of truth. It has that kernel of truth, that seed of truth that you plant into this great thing. And then Savage goes babyface for a little bit. And they team up together against Jimmy Hart and the First Family. And Savage goes back heel. By the time 1985 rolls around, Vince is coming calling. Everybody knows Randy Savage is like this guy is special. This guy is special. And Vince is coming calling, and Randy's going to answer that call. So he loses a loser leaves town match to Jerry Lawler in 1985, and he's on his way to the WWF. And this is at a time where free agency in sports isn't a huge thing yet. Maybe baseball has it, football doesn't have it yet. I don't think basketball may have had it, but it's not a huge thing. But the whole angle, the whole storyline, when Savage comes in, he comes in as a heel, and it's like every manager wants him. Every manager is lining up and making their pitch to why Randy Savage should join them. Because remember, back then, you didn't have a lot of babyface managers. Bob Backlund had Arnold Skolin before that, and a little after this, Don Morocco had superstar Billy Graham. But most of your managers are heels. They would be the guys that would. It was a shorthand because you didn't have to get a guy over as a heel if he came in and Fred Blassie was in his corner, because people hated Blassie, people hated Albano, people hated the Grand Wizard, people hated Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, whoever it was. So a guy could come in, be associated with him, and automatically like that. I mean, we've done it. I've done it. Oh, you want a guy to get a reaction? Oh, he's going to go with Travis Norbert. He's going to be a heel automatically. It works. It works.
The only one you don't need to do that with is Logie P, because he's already just so hateable. The kid, just look at his face. He's just one of those faces you want to put one of those on. You know what I mean? He's terrible. So Kid, I'll tell you what though, kid can butt chug. Yeah, great at that.
He's the Funk Brewing butt chugging champion of the world.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is a lead up, and I think this happened in Allentown, not Hamburg, but I think it was Agricultural Hall in Allentown, a TV where all the managers are lined up. Johnny Valiant and Heenan, all the managers are lined up, and Savage is going to announce who his new manager is going to be. And out comes Miss Elizabeth. And she is his manager, and she is also his heat magnet. She's going to be there. It's a kind of a masterstroke of she's not going to be the heel. He's going to be the heel. He's going to get all the heat by treating her like garbage, telling her to stay quiet. Your place is in the corner. You don't look at her, and it's all feeding off of like real life stuff. Again, that kernel, that like seed of truth,
stopping her so he can walk first.
Right? Yeah,
all those subtle things,
making her hold the ropes open for him, and they leaned into the Macho Man thing. Like his whole thing was like, I'm the ultimate. I'm what every man wants to be. I am the pinnacle of what you. It was like that Shawn Michaels before Shawn Michaels almost. They did a thing on TNT.
Macho Man was the original sexy boy.
Whereas like he would do his advice to the lovelorn. Like here's I think they did a dating game with him, and he just rejected all of them. And he's
I don't want to date you. You're hideous. Look at that guy over there. What a dreamboat. He's like,
look at his white glasses.
No, he's on meth.
It's not meth. It's cocaine. Yeah. Recently news makes me
it's just
feel the madness.
visual of just him being like the most like he's treated like Rick Rude,
Yeah.
like the sex icon, but it's Macho Man in the corner like a crackhead.
I mean, look at Shawn Michaels. That's the boy toy, really?
He
With
looked
his
more of a
wonky
boy
eye.
toy. Yeah, he didn't have it then. How dare you? That wasn't until much later. Much later.
It's funny going back to Hogan. When they did the Billionaire Ted skits, when they were really feuding with WCW and had like the fake Ted Turner, he's like, "Hey, Huckster, what if we call you the boy toy?" So Macho, they also do the thing with like George Steele, where George Steele is infatuated with Elizabeth. They pull out all the stops. And
I just watched the old. It might have been on that Vault channel, to be honest with you. It was
so good.
When they took what's his name, George Animal Steel to the zoo, and he's describing all the animals.
You
and just the one-liners from Mean Gene are just great.
And along the way here, very early on in his run, within a few months, because he comes in not that long after WrestleMania 1, Tito Santana wins the Intercontinental title back from Greg Valentine, and not too far beyond that, Savage is going to cheat to win. He's going to have like that steel spike and pop Santana with it and win the Intercontinental title and really, really, really put his mark on that title. Like, he's a guy, because he had so much success afterward, that doesn't get his just due as one of the all-time great Intercontinental champions. 100%. He was one of those guys where this is a point where WWF's business is getting really hot and they're trying to maximize their money, and they're doing A and B shows. They're doing ABC shows. So they might do, the A show might be in New York, Philadelphia, the B show is in Allentown, and the C show is in Hazleton at the Holy Family Academy, whatever it was called at that point, or the Scranton Youth Rec Center or something like that. They would still run high school gyms, but your main event would be like Hillbilly Jim against, I don't know, Hillbilly Jim against Cowboy Bob Orton or something like that. Bob Orton's probably too big of a star. It would be the guy, like right now, like your main event would be the Creed brothers against Otis and Tozawa or something like that. Would be the main event of that show.
Yeah.
So Savage would main event a lot of the B territories. Like he would main event the shows Hogan wasn't on. They did things where like Bruno Sammartino would wrestle him in a non-title match. He would come out of retirement to wrestle him. They would do a lot of different things like that. And this is where the George Steele thing happens. That's WrestleMania 2. So Savage is really, really, really kind of building. He even had a run with Hogan where he's like, oh, it's only Hogan's titles on the line, but it's Hogan and Savage. And those things drew. They drew really, really well. So by the time WrestleMania 3 comes around, 1987, Savage is, like a lot of heels that do really well, is starting to get some cheers. He's so entertaining. He's so over the top. He's so talented. His style is so exciting. Like this is the other thing. This is when you had a lot of like 5-minute headlocks and, you know, big guys that aren't really very athletic, and Hogan's doing the same match every night. I mean, the formula worked. People loved it, but it's the same match every night. He takes the heat for 10 minutes and then he hulks up at the end and wins. And it's usually against a guy who was one of those guys that's not very athletic. It's Big John Studd, it's Kamala, it's Bundy. It's a big dude. It's just a big plotting guy who looks imposing. So Randy Savage is having the most exciting match of the night most nights, unless he's on with like the British Bulldogs or something. Like if you want to see a great early WWF match, their first pay-per-view, the Wrestling Classic, Dynamite Kid and Randy Savage, it's only like 9 minutes long, but it's one of the best sub 10-minute matches you'll ever see.
Yeah.
So by the time 87 rolls along, Savage has been the Intercontinental Champion for a little over a year, and it's time to move on. So they set up this feud with Ricky Steamboat where Savage drops the bell across his throat. Ricky can't breathe. He gets stretchered out. And it sets up WrestleMania 3. And I mean, the match has been surpassed athletically by other matches, but
it was a benchmark for a very long time.
It's still a good match. It's still a good match. It's just that if you're looking for high spots, like modern high spots where there's like flips and dives and rolls and things like that, this isn't it. This isn't it. But it's a very sound match. It should be. One of the things, and Shawn Michaels, I believe, was like this too. And DDP was absolutely like this, and that's why they worked so well together. Savage was notorious for liking to script out his match move for move. He didn't like to improvise. He wasn't a called in the ring guy. He liked to lay it out completely. Like they say, they had that match at WrestleMania 3 not only scripted out, but they had rehearsed it move for move a few times. So it was like it was a dance sequence. It was
he would call he had, I guess from what Matt Savage said, is they would each sit in the locker room and they had a notepad and they listed it from 1 to whatever, and I forget how many spots it was. Let's say, but it was over. I remember at one point he might have said 170 or something like that.
Yeah,
like they were up there in numbers, and Macho Man can go through all 200 spots. Boop 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 boop, and he would call Ricky in the middle of the night, be like, Ricky, what's number 67? And if Ricky got it wrong,
he's trying to sleep.
Yeah,
Randy.
yeah, yeah. He was that obsessed.
Man, what is it?
He was that obsessed with that match and all of his matches, but particularly that one.
It's a hip toss. You got it wrong. You got to learn the sequence.
Yeah, but that's how meticulous he was, especially with that match.
So, and that doesn't lead to a whole lot for Steamboat, because Steamboat wanted to, heaven forbid, Steamboat wanted to be there when his kid was born and to take some time to be with his kids. So they had to get that title. They had to get that title off of him, lickety split. And it winds up with the Honky Tonk Man. And that's going to be the impetus for the Randy Savage babyface turn as 1987 grows on, because not that long after he wins the title, and this has lasted to this day. This is still a thing. Honky Tonk Man starts saying how he is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. And that started, I mean, people would run with it because he was the longest reigning and for forever until Gunther beat his record. But that really started from him saying that and Randy Savage being like,
I don't know about that. I think I'm the greatest Intercontinental Champion.
So that was really the impetus for the babyface turn, to the point where they have a match, I believe it was on Saturday Night's Main Event, where the Hart Foundation, who are both heels, they're heels as well, they're managed by Jimmy Hart, interfere, and they are beating down Randy Savage. They're holding Savage up while Honky hits him with the guitar and everything. And so Elizabeth makes what winds up being a mistake and runs for Hulk Hogan to save the day. And this is the birth of the Mega Powers. The Mega Powers, as 1987 goes into 1988, the Mega Powers are a big thing. Hogan is going to have that kind of sketchy. We covered it on the Saturday Night's Main Event episode, even though it was the main event. That sketchy loss to Andre with the referee that got plastic surgery to look like Dave Hebner and is totally not his twin brother Earl. And the other match on that show was Randy Savage against the Honky Tonk Man. That was on the same show. That show is probably the most watched wrestling show in the history of will probably be the most watched wrestling show in the history of professional wrestling. And that sets up the tournament at WrestleMania 4. Randy Savage wins it. Randy Savage is now the WWF champion. Has that run with DiBiase, has a feud with Bad News Brown. But in the meantime, you have that little undercurrent of
Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan's got to get involved. Hulk Hogan's got lust in his eyes for Elizabeth.
SummerSlam is, and it's supposed to be like even more salacious than it wound up being, but Savage was like,
you can't wear that. It's too skimpy. Yeah, it's too skimpy.
Where it's Hogan and Savage against DiBiase and Andre, and Elizabeth gets on the apron and takes her skirt off. She has like bloomers. Yeah, it's like the bottoms of, like, if you probably it's something somebody would wear to the gym these days. It's the bottom of, it's like spandex bikini briefs. And there's that whole thing when Randy puts him up on her shoulder, like Hogan puts a hand on her back, maybe her butt, to steady her
because he's got lust in his eyes. Yeah.
At Survivor Series, when Hogan and Savage are the sole survivors, who's the first person Hogan goes to celebrate with? It's not Randy, it's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. I know, I girl. See it in your eyes, Hulk Hogan. You got lust in your eyes. Yeah.
And he totally did. He was right. He was right. Randy Savage was right. Always remember that. Hogan was wrong. And that all leads to WrestleMania 5, which is a huge.
By the way, I want this figure.
That's pretty cool.
It comes with the winged eagle too.
Half of that set is really cool.
I just like the gear that Macho Man's wearing. That robe is sick.
My favorite Macho Man robe, and it's from this time in '88. It's one of the first. It's funny. This is when I had a recordable VCR because I had this on a VHS tape for a while. They did an episode in like November of 1988, and I think it was taped well before that, where it's like primetime wrestling live from Paris. And it's the last big appearance for a lot of guys because it's right around the same time as Survivor Series. And it's guys who are really on their way out. Like Dom, it's one of the last Dom Morocco appearances. It's one of the last Junkyard Dog appearances. One of the last British Bulldog appearances. It's where Rockin' Robin beats Sherry for the women's title. But the main event of that show is Randy Savage against Akeem, even though like it's in France, but they're coming out and they have like signs behind them where it has like their English name. And they're calling superstars to the weekly show.
I'm not sure.
It's the only superstars I can think of, unless it's the old celebrities doing like athletic stuff show. So Randy comes out and it's this black and silver, like poncho style robe. It is the coolest wrestling robe I have ever seen. I love it.
Black and silver one.
It's so cool. It's amazing. And then at WrestleMania 4, like he does a few costume changes. Liz does a few costume changes. That one's really cool. But unfortunately, Hulk Hogan had to ruin all the fun and win the title back at WrestleMania 5. But that's fine. Randy Savage will be okay. He's going to become the king. He beats Jim Duggan, becomes the Macho King, has a big feud with Dusty Rhodes, teams up with Zeus to, again, of course, lose to Hogan at SummerSlam. Also at No Holds Barred, the match, the movie. So 1990, he's really locked into that feud with Rhodes. Savage and Sherry lose to Sapphire and Dusty at WrestleMania 6. Elizabeth's in Dusty and Sapphire's corner. And then by the time we get to the end of 1990 and going into 1991, Savage is thinking about having a family. Like Randy and Liz are thinking about having a family, and he needs a way to kind of maybe not fully retire, but at least take a break. He wants to get off the gas. He wants to, tone down the steroid use a little bit. Maybe bring his, like he's always in great shape, but maybe bring that down a little bit to a more natural, being in good shape. So they have the whole thing in the 1991 Royal Rumble where Sherry comes out. It says Sergeant Slaughter has already said this because Warrior and Slaughter for the title. Sergeant Slaughter has already agreed, like, if he wins the title, he's going to give Macho Man a shot. Ultimate Warrior, I'm begging you. This is Sherry now. She gets on her knees and begs for the Warrior to give Randy Savage a shot, too. And he does the funniest ever, no! Like, he's yelling no and vibrating for, like, a full minute almost. And Sherry's, like, screaming. But then Savage gets involved in the match, cracks Warrior over the head with a scepter. Slaughter wins the WWF title. And that takes us to WrestleMania 7. And this isn't the best match I ever saw, but it might be my favorite match. And I think it's the greatest version of a one-man show. If you ever say, show me an example of somebody carrying somebody to a great match, oh, that's easy. Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior, WrestleMania 7, where... And it's also an emotional high because, Warrior, and it's a loser must retire match. Warrior gets the win. Savage has to retire, and Sherry's flipping out because that's her guy. That's her client. Now she's doesn't have a client, and she's laying the boots to Randy Savage, and then Elizabeth jumps the rail, comes in, throws Sherry out of the ring. Elizabeth never gets physically involved. She just throws Sherry out of the ring, and they reunite. And Randy's a baby face again, and they get married at SummerSlam. But then
now, here's the thing: you're saying that Randy wanted to take time off to start a family.
That's what they were saying.
If I'm not mistaken, on the documentary, the time that they're doing their on-screen marriage, they're filing for divorce.
They're starting to it's starting to fray a little bit.
Yeah, I thought what they were saying was on one of the documentaries. I've watched 100 different ones on him, but it might have been even the Dark Side of the Ring. But during the marriage angle on television, she was filing for divorce on Randy.
They divorced in '92, so it was getting there. It was definitely getting there. So, but the idea was, I want to, the idea at the year in early 1991 was, maybe we want to make a run at doing something a little more. So they do the wedding angle, and then they do the Jake angle and the Undertaker thing, where Jake has hidden a snake in one of the wedding presents.
That
Such
Jake,
a good angle.
That Jake angle fucked me up.
And then they do the angle where it's that WWE Vault channel just put out a 3-hour Randy Savage, like it's the Randy Savage mixtape, and the proposal angles in there is like, Elizabeth, I love you. And he's like, it's so hokey and bad, but if you're 8 years old, it's like, oh, this is great. This is great. This is cinema.
That's your version of the Barbie movie when you were
there you go. A match made in heaven and a match made in hell.
Yeah.
So then they do the angle where the snake bites Savage. We have
paintbrush the hell out of him.
Fucked me up as a kid. Fucked me up. I thought he's dead. This is it.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could take the venom out of snakes. I thought this dude was dead on, because like when you're a kid too, a poison snake bites you, was like the cartoons. You're dead within you're dead in 15 minutes.
Yeah, the two things you fear are that and quicksand. Like those are the two scariest things in the world.
And I knew that because cobras are like the most visually remembering snakes with the hood, and you're like, that's the most dangerous snake of all time.
Oh yeah.
And it bites him, and I remember the kid. I remember like watching it and like, is this happening? And then they cut to the crowd and the kids are bawling. And I like once I seen another kid cry, done. I'm like in my dad. Oh, he's gonna die.
It was a weird time for the WWF because the WWF was still very much for kids.
Yeah,
but it was getting really dark. Like you had that, and then like 1992 comes around, and you have. In 1991, you also have the Undertaker locking the Warrior in the casket, and then they open up the casket. There's like claw marks from the Undertaker from the Warrior trying to claw his way out.
Did you have any friends growing up that were genuinely afraid of the Undertaker?
Yes, I did.
I did too. I had a friend when he came on, he would leave. Like if it was a horror movie, he would leave the room.
Yeah,
that Royal Rumble where they had the casket, where they all beat him down and carry the casket out, and the camera's inside, and he's just. When my friend seen his face, knowing that his eyes are gonna open, he fucking screamed and ran out of the room because he didn't want to visually see the Undertaker go, because it would have he wouldn't have slept for a week.
But it really did get super dark. Like then you had the next year you had Papa Shango, and he's like setting people's hands and feet on fire, and nails like beat the hell out of the Big Boss Man, and they show them all like bruised and stuff. It was like a wild time.
Yeah,
it was a wild time. It's like Vince is like, I'm gonna scare all these kids, like they're gonna be terrified. So but Randy Savage winds up coming back off of that Jake thing, and the Jake feud doesn't last long because Jake's on his way out, and then it spins to Ric Flair. And Randy Savage and Ric Flair, this is one of the all-time great Savage opponents, and it starts with Elizabeth was mine before she was yours. The first time you ever see Photoshop, although they called it like sci-texting, where they just put these pictures of Randy and Elizabeth, and they put Ric Flair's face over the
Randy's body.
Savage's. Yes, and they were like, oh, this is before you were together. But they're like, and I remember there's like this big expose on like Wrestling Challenge or Superstars, like, well, if you look at the VHS tapes on the wall behind them, one of them is WrestleMania 4, and this couldn't have possibly been before. It's like they did an expose on it. And
do you think the reason they did that expose is because Savage was still like, I'll do the story, but you need to say like, I'm not, she's actually not. Yeah.
They can't think Flair really did anything. No.
Yeah, I don't even want it in people's brains that this can possibly be real.
Well, look, there is one thing he did veto. There's one thing he did veto, and I think this was always. I think that was always the plan. And like some of it was just stupid. Like, look at the pillows. It's R and L for Rick and Liz. It's like, no, it's Randy and Liz. Stupid. Come on.
Yeah.
Even if you're 8, you're like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But the thing they really pushed was at WrestleMania 8 on the Jumbotron. They're like, we have pictures of Elizabeth where she's wearing nothing but a staple. They're basically saying we're going to show naked pictures of Elizabeth on the Jumbotron. They all but said that.
Yeah.
And they didn't do anything with it. They said it was like a fake out. Like there was a lot of that stuff at this point. That was like a fake out where it's like, oh, they're just trying to get in Savage's head. But I guess there's supposed to be like some kind of bikini pictures they're going to put up there, like something like that. But Randy's like, no,
we're not doing
no
it.
shot.
You're not going to do it. I'll fight you. I don't care if you're the boss, Vince. I'll rip your head off.
And also part of that is this is the time when, because this is like kind of the end of Elizabeth as a character, was that WrestleMania. Randy wins the title, loses it back. The other thing that they kind of like, he was supposed to, according to a lot of people, lose it to the Ultimate Warrior. And the Warrior was supposed to turn heel and join up with Mr. Perfect and Flair, but the Warrior didn't want to turn heel, so he winds up losing it back to Flair. And when Savage loses the title to Flair, this is when he's going to start to segue into a semi-active role. He's going to wrestle like he's in the Royal Rumble. He's a runner-up to Yokozuna in '93, but at WrestleMania he's just announcing at WrestleMania 9. SummerSlam he's just announcing. He's doing some house show stuff. He'll wrestle occasionally, but he's
the color commentary for the most part.
Yeah, I think he had turned 40, and Vince had this thing when guys were 40 back then, like you got to get them off TV. You gotta shift them down. He does the angle with Crush, has his last WrestleMania match.
Same with Piper. Piper did a lot of commentary too because he wasn't being used in that way, but he was too good not to be using his voice.
Yeah. So 93, 94, Savage is wrestling every now and then, but he's mainly doing commentary. He's like a goodwill ambassador. Randy Savage loved working with kids. He loved working with like Make-A-Wish and the Special Olympics and things like that.
Now, what about the rumor and innuendo here?
Oh, yeah, well, there's that.
Do you buy it?
No.
I don't know if I buy it either.
No. So, yeah, there's the rumor because Randy Savage leaves the WWF at the end of 1994. Shortly after, I think one of the last big things he did, Mr. Perfect had backed out of wrestling. He started doing that like oh, my neck's too bad, my back's too bad again. So Savage filled in for him at the 94 Survivor Series in one of the elimination matches. And then maybe a month after that, not even, Vince McMahon just on Raw, as the announcer says, Randy Savage has decided to not renew his contract with the World Wrestling Federation. We wish him all the best. The reason that Stephanie rumor, the rumor is that Randy Savage had a tryst with Stephanie McMahon when she was like 16 or 17. And there's people that swear it's the truth. There's people that swear it's not. And
wasn't there always rumors that there was a photo of Macho Man and Shane McMahon was like, I hate that guy, but he wouldn't say why or something?
Yes. That was a guy who, like, I guess like somebody had a picture of Randy Savage up when there was a writer for WWF magazine, and Shane like ripped it down and threw it. And Shane was usually very laid back, and like he ripped it down and balled it up and threw it in the garbage. So maybe there is. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like,
Gorgeous George's ex-wife has done an interview and said that he confirmed it. So, well, it's all speculation. You know what I mean?
As somebody would say, rumor and innuendo. The people who two people would know 100%. One of them's dead, and one of them's not going to say a word.
Yep,
that's Randy Savage. And
was he ever? He was never put in the Hall of Fame or anything, was he?
Way later. Can you hold on? I'll be right back. Can you just give me a second here?
Yep. Okay. All right. Be right back. But yeah, at this time, there was another rumor too that he wanted to have one last run, and he wanted to do one more storyline. And one of the sites he had on that he wanted to work was with Shawn Michaels, which, my God, I mean, there's matches of them online that you can watch of them two working each other. But he wanted to do a whole storyline with Shawn, and unfortunately, it never happened because he signed the contract. He goes back over to he leaves at the end of 94, and he goes to the rival company, World Championship Wrestling, and over there he's not going to be used as the color commentary guy. He's not seen as the 40-year-old that can't wrestle anymore. He's going to go back and he's going to show up on Saturday night, and he's going to reference his love-hate relationship with Hulk Hogan. And they're going to start maybe bringing the Mega Powers back over in WCW. But while BP stepped away for a little bit, I'll kind of just let him know that's where we're at now. But guys, if you can, I'll set it up real quick here. If you can, if we can hit it, awesome. If we can't, we can't. But let's try another goal today. Let's see if we can get either let's set a goal. I'm gonna maybe set it for 3 this time. Maybe 5 would be too much, but maybe we can hit either 3 super chats, 3 memberships, or 3 t-shirt sales. So if you guys wanna, can we do 3? No, we can't. We only do 5. And we'll do it for another 30 minutes because the show will be done soon. So and we'll do a Q&A. If anybody we'll open it up to you guys to ask some questions, or we'll do a little bit at the end. So we'll do that now. We'll start that goal. And if we can hit some super chats or anything like that, make sure you guys are here. Hit the like, share, subscribe, get it all out there. And remember to go follow us on the audio side of things too, over on Spotify or your favorite audio podcast. BP's back. BP, I just said he was rumored that he wanted to wrestle Sean, and it didn't work out. And then he went over and he joined on a Saturday night show over on WCW. He's back, and he's possibly reuniting the Mega Powers.
Yeah, the whole thing was the end of Starrcade. Sorry, I drank too much tea there, and
You're good.
had to run to the restroom. So the whole idea was he was on a Saturday night's main event, or WCW Saturday night, and he said, "I'm going to confront Hulk Hogan at the end of Starrcade, and I'm either going to shake his hand or slap him in the face, and you'll find out which one." And he picked the wrong one. He shook his hand, and the Mega Powers came back together, and they brought back somebody else when they came together in the early part of 1995 on a Clash of the Champions. Elizabeth comes back. I guess there had been enough time between their divorce and enough things to calm down where he felt okay with working with her in a professional capacity, and so she became his manager. She became the manager of the I think they had to call them the Mega Maniacs but they couldn't call them Mega Powers. I think WWF still owned that. It's funny. There was there's this one thing. One of the big matches they had initially was a handicap match. It was them against Kevin Sullivan, the Butcher, and Avalanche, who was Earthquake, the original Faces of Fear. And Hogan's knocked out, and he did the reviving elbow, where Savage gives Hogan the flying elbow, and it makes him hulk up because I guess he was so used to beating Hogan like every time after kicking out of that elbow.
Yeah,
and he mainly is feuding with Flair. He's mainly feuding with Ric Flair through 1995. They're reigniting that, and even into the end of 1995, where Randy Savage wins World War III, which is their big 60-man battle royal for the vacant WCW title. And it's funny because Hogan gets pulled out by the Giant, but it's under the bottom rope. But the ref sees him just outside of the ring and says he's eliminated. And they go to check. It's so dumb. They go to check the tape the next night on Nitro because Nitro is a thing now. And as it's the point where it shows Hogan didn't really get thrown out, the tape goes fuzzy because it got messed up. And Hogan's like, "Randy, you know I didn't get thrown out." And Savage just goes,
"What it is what it is." Yeah.
So
I didn't realize how often he won the championship in WCW. I didn't watch it that often. I was like, wait, Savage has like a 2 or 3 title run.
Yeah,
and I was like impressed because I just like
they
being
were all,
a WWE fan. He had his
they
eagle,
were all pretty
but like
short.
Yeah, it was all essentially to put over Hogan eventually anyway, and I just didn't expect him to do it that much in WCW with Hogan.
Yeah, his first run was a big one. He was champion for a little over a year. The second one was just from WrestleMania to a little after SummerSlam. Those were his 2 WWF runs. The first WCW run was very short. He won it in November at World War III. He lost it to Flair in December at Starrcade. And then they did a thing in early 96 where Elizabeth turns heel. Elizabeth helps Ric Flair beat the Macho Man. And this is a great piece of business. And this was really where the business started to pick up even before the NWO for WCW. They were getting some steam from this Ric Flair Randy Savage feud. And the stuff was great. Like Liz turns heel, and it's like they're talking about how they did a thing on Nitro where they have this whole thing set up where they have this fancy catered dinner. They have they're all wearing like gowns and tuxedos and stuff, and they're drinking champagne and eating like lobster and steak and everything. And they pull out this credit card. It's like, yeah, this is on the Macho Man's credit card. Like, he's paying for all this. It's great stuff. They stole it from the 80s. Baby Doll did the same thing when she left Dusty Rhodes. It's great stuff though. It's like she went to Hawaii with my Diners Club card, baby. He's like $1,347 of assorted men and booze. God, this
honestly, you know what you should maybe have given away PPW ideas in the future, but when Martinez comes back, if he ever has to go babyface or has to go like solo because he's the man with the best credit score, you should have him manage up with the woman, and then she leaves him, and then like use all of his money, and it lowers his credit. He becomes bum ass Corbin, except his own like his credit store is destroyed.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
He grows a beard.
The Flair Savage thing kind of goes by the wayside when the NWO hits, and that's initially for the first couple of months, Savage is like a big person going against the NWO. He challenges Hogan at Halloween Havoc. He's part of Team WCW at War Games. Like they do a whole like serious angle. Like it was like very symbolic where they hold Elizabeth down and spray paint NWO on her dress. And it's like, wow, this is serious. And then 2 months later, they're both in the NWO. So, and at that point, Savage really, again, is kind of just relegated to second fiddle to Hogan until after Hogan loses the title to Sting. Savage is actually the guy that beat Sting, and Sting's reign wasn't long at all. It was like 3 months. And Savage is the guy that beat him, but then he loses it to Hogan like a night later. And so he's kind of spinning his wheels. He had a great feud with DDP too when he was in the NWO. 1997, him and DDP had a really good feud. Like there were pay-per-views Hogan would take off. One of them was a Great American Bash for Hogan, or Savage and DDP had a wonderful match. Again, they really went well together because they both like to plot their stuff out. And Savage and Elizabeth would take shots at DDP because DDP was married to Kimberly Page at the time, and she had done a Playboy pictorial. And I remember they showed it off and they covered everything they had to cover up with they just put NWO over it and like in black marker. It was a really good little touch there. But then after the NWO fizzles out, Savage is kind of there, sometimes gone, sometimes. He's most famous, I guess, for having this thing where he was a heel with Gorgeous George, who was the second wife, Stephanie Bellers, I believe. She wound up marrying Doyle Frankenstein from the Misfits later. Yeah. And Tori Wilson's with him too, and Miss Madness, who winds up becoming Molly Holly. He wins the title again, and he's just like a very, very kind of intense heel. But as WCW is starting to go a little wonky, he comes and goes a lot. He got really big again too. He started like probably really, we don't know for sure, but probably had some chemical enhancement. Usually you do if you're building a lot of muscle in your mid to late 40s. Yeah, one can only speculate. And then when WCW goes away, that's when it's like, oh yeah, WWF just doesn't want any part of this guy. They're not, and that's when a lot of that noise of, oh, maybe there's something to it. Like like whenever they would bring him up for Hall of Fame, it was like, no, Randy Savage is not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Randy Savage, until he died. Like it wasn't even right after he died. It was a few years well after he died that they finally put him in the Hall of Fame. And his last real wrestling appearances, I think he might have done some in Australia for that World Wrestling All-Stars. But when TNA was starting to go from weekly pay-per-views to monthly pay-per-views, some of the earlier monthly pay-per-views, like 2 or 3 of them, he was there, but he was a shell of his former self. He wasn't doing any flying elbows. He was much older. It was when he was rapping. And in between, of course, he does Spider-Man. He was Bonesaw McGraw in the original Spider-Man movie.
Jacked in that movie. He was jacked.
That's what it looked like at the end of WCW, because that wasn't long after that when he was in Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was disgustingly jacked. I mean, he was big in his TNA days too.
Yeah, he stayed that big for a while, and like when he was doing when he became a rapper and he did the Hulk Hogan diss track, "Be a Man,"
Hogan.
I guess because at the end he was really outspokenly like, I don't like Hulk Hogan, and he wanted to do a boxing match
as most wrestlers did.
Yeah, he wanted to do like a charity boxing match with Hogan. And I guess Hogan initially said he would do it, and then he backed out. And that was what that whole diss track was about, the Be a Man thing. And as a matter of fact, I think they say he stopped working with TNA because there were always like these dalliances with Hogan. Like he wound up not coming in until like 2009. But there was
Yeah.
always talk like, oh, Hogan's coming to TNA. They even did an angle in Japan where Hogan was wrestling in Japan and Jeff Jarrett breaks a guitar over his head, but then Hogan backed out of the match in like 2003 or so.
His Macho was like, "Yeah, if you show up,
Yeah,
I'm taking
it's
a
on
swing."
site basically. And
Yeah.
they say the reason he stopped working with TNA was because Hogan wasn't there, but he went backstage, or it might have been after his match, and Jimmy Hart was there. And Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan are. It's funny because everybody loves Jimmy Hart, and a lot of people hate Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, there's synonymous with one another.
But no, Jimmy Hart was a lot of management stuff. He was like, he would do a lot for Hogan. And Savage knew if Jimmy Hart's around, Hogan's probably not that far behind. And he's like, well, I'm getting out of here. Yeah. And you didn't really see Savage in the public eye at that point. He wouldn't really do a whole lot as far as appearances or like conventions or things like that. And then unfortunately, he did remarry, married, I think somebody who was like a high school sweetheart or something. But he's driving, and I forget the exact date, and I think 2008, has a heart attack behind the wheel, hits right into a tree, and that's the end of Randy Savage, unfortunately.
Yeah.
58 years
Dude, he was a cool looking old man. Like,
Yeah,
old man
he looked like-
Savage.
He looked like George Carlin on the Gas. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a cool looking. Like, could you imagine? Like, right now is popular, obviously, just like right after Christmas, is where you have those badass Santa Claus movies where he goes and beats everyone up.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Macho Man was still alive and he can play badass Santa?
I'll tell you one thing. He would have been a better person to be in Santa's sleigh than that no good Bill Goldberg.
Yeah. I thought it was but and then he obviously around that time too. I don't know if it was during his TNA run where he gives the blessing for Jay White to be the Black Macho Man, Black Machismo.
Oh, Jay Lethal, you mean?
Jay Lethal, sorry, yeah, Jay Lethal.
Black Machismo.
But yeah, he had a pretty good run too when it comes to acting too. Obviously, he was in a lot of different appearances with Ready to Rumble. He was in Spider-Man. He was in the kids movie that I did not know this, but he was in the movie Bolt.
Really? I know he's
the voice of
the
a
Weird
thug
Al
in
show.
Bolt. Yeah,
he was on the Weird Al show in the 90s.
And then there's another cartoon called Super Rhino, which is like another thing that I guess Disney did, and he played the voice of a thug in that as well.
He had
Baywatch.
such a distinct voice. He had such a distinct voice.
Yeah, he was a character voice in Dexter's Laboratory.
Wrestler, yes, I remember that. He was a wrestling robot.
Yep.
Wrestler.
Space Ghost Coast to Coast. He was Leonard the Gray. He was on the Duck Dodgers, an episode in Duck Dodgers. I'm just trying to look at some other crazy ones. King of the Hill, he played Gorilla.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then a Cars Racer-Rama video game in 2009. He did El Machismo, a voice of a
I didn't realize until he passed just how famous he really was, because people, like, you always hear like Hogan was famous and The Rock, but like, and it's mainly from those Slim Jim commercials. Like, everybody knew Randy Savage from slapping the Slim Jim. And and then like some of my favorite stuff is, do you ever see it was when Skyrim was really big, like back in like 2011 2012 when Skyrim was really big,
the Macho Man Dragon,
the Macho Dragon. Yeah,
like
instead of just hearing a dragon here,
I've been in the danger zone.
Macho Man, it's a dragon with Randy Savage's head. Yeah, and it just breathes fly. That's so good. It's so good.
Hard and Soft Wrestling Podcast. What's going on, brother? We did that at the beginning of the show, so if you want to check out the first half, we always do like This Week in Wrestling before our topic, so you can check that out. But overall, I gave it an 8 out of 10 for a show. I thought it was fine. Yeah, so let's kind of go through some accomplishments. The NWA Mid-South Continental Wrestling Association, AWA South Heavyweight Champion 2 times, CWA International Championship. Yeah, 1 time, and then the NWA Mid-American Heavyweight Championship 3 times. He won the GPW International Heavyweight Championship twice, the NWA Gulf Coast Tag Team Champions with his brother once.
The Gulf of America, right?
Yes, the Gulf of America. The ICW World Heavyweight Championship 3 times. He was in the Lilo DiPaolo Legends of Odd in 2016. No idea what that is. The
Neither do
Memphis
I.
Classic Hall of Fame 2002. Pro Wrestling Illustrated has some awards there. Comeback of the Year 95. Feud of the Year 97 with Diamond Dallas Page. Match of the Year 87 with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Most Hated Wrestler in 1989. Most Popular Wrestler in 1988. So he goes from popular to hated in 1 year. In
Well, the
88
Mega
to
Powers
89.
exploded. Yeah.
Yeah. The Stan Westland Award 2011. The Wrestler of the Year 88. Ranked
No, I think
number
that,
2.
I think he died in 2011, not 2008. 2011 seems too early, or 2008 is too early.
Ranked number 2.
Yes. Because there was that joke. If do you remember this in 2011, where like there was this big advertising campaign that the rapture was going to happen? There was like a specific date, like the rapture is going to happen. Like everybody, like it's the end times. And like 2 days before it was supposed to happen, Randy Savage died, and people said Randy Savage died so we could pull up. And then there's a picture of like, you know, like Jesus and all these people like sitting in a meadow, and like Randy Savage is coming in with the flying elbow.
Yeah. Number 2 in the top 500 for PWI in 92. Number 9 in the top 500 in 2003. Number 57 in the top 100 tag teams of PWI years with Hulk Hogan in 2003. Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2009. Sports Illustrated, number 11th of greatest WWE wrestlers of all time. Number 11, right outside the top 10. Crazy.
That's low.
USWA Unified Heavyweight Championship once. WCW Heavyweight Champion 4-time. World War III winner 95. World Cup Wrestling 95. And I'll skip that. There's another World Wrestling Council champion at one time, but WWF
World Wrestling Council is Carlos Colon's company in Puerto Rico.
Got you. WWF champion 2 times, Intercontinental Championship once, King of the Ring in 87, World Heavyweight Championship Tournament 88, and the 2015 WB Hall of Fame. Wrestling Observer letter gave him Match of the Year 87, Most Improved in 92, Most Worked Match of the Year 96, which was him, Hulk Hogan, Arn Anderson, Ming, Barbarian, Ric Flair,
How did we miss that? Whoa,
yeah.
Time out. We got to talk about that one.
Yeah.
So that was the second WCW Uncensored. And so they would do these stupid gimmick matches in WCW Uncensored. And this is peak Hogan ego. This match is peak Hogan ego. Because you have the Mega Maniac.
Can we just do the history of Hogan, but instead of his history, just all the times he was a shit face?
You got that kind of time in your life? I don't.
Yeah.
I got work in the morning. I can't be here that long. So this is the
wait till he dies. It'll be a whole thing. It'll be our tribute show is like, here's how much we don't like this guy.
It's going to be the exact opposite of an Irish wake.
Yeah. I already said it. The day Hulk Hogan dies, I'm doing a party stream. I don't like that, man.
I'm gonna have a party and day somebody else dies. But less said about that, the better.
So wait at least 4 years.
So let's talk about Vince McMahon. What are you talking about?
Oh, him too.
There's a list. All right, there's a list. So
a list of people we're waiting to go of natural causes that we are ourselves not going to participate in.
No.
Thank you.
No Luigi situation here. No.
Yeah, no Luigi. We our hatred's not that much. Yeah.
No, and I'm very lazy.
Yeah.
So the Doomsday Cage. This is Uncensored 95, and I believe Ric Flair is a champion at this point. Maybe Savage, but I think it's Ric Flair. Or no, actually no. Giant may have won it. Whoever. Somebody's a champion. It's not Hogan, and it's not Randy Savage. But they are gonna do this thing where they have this cage where it's 3 cages stacked on top of one another. It's by the entrance, and they have to fight their way through the cages against 8 people. It's Flair, Arn Anderson, Meng the Barbarian, I think Lex Luger. I forget the other person, maybe Brian Pillman. And then the 2 other people are Z Gangsta, because Hogan always wanted to bring back his old rival. Z Gangsta is Zeus, the late Tiny Zeus Lister.
Yep.
And did you ever see the George Clooney Batman movie?
Yeah.
The ridiculously big guy that played Bane, Jeep Swenson. He was there, and initially, because Hogan was still like had in his head like, I gotta beat the Warrior, dude.
I got to beat the Warrior.
but the Warrior wasn't coming to WCW yet. That was a few years later.
But I got to do something.
So actually, they changed it to the Ultimate thing. So the Jeep Swenson was that guy's name. He was like comically huge, and they brought him in as the final solution. The final solution.
Yeah. That has some great connotation to it.
Look, that would get over with Hulk Hogan's fan base right now, I think.
Yeah, that would.
But yeah, people are like, yeah, that's
wait. So the MAGA powers formed even back then.
Well, no, they were fighting against the final solution. That was before they were on the same side.
Yeah.
So I eventually was like, hey, you know, that's what they call the Holocaust, right? That's what they call the Holocaust. We probably shouldn't use that name for a wrestler. And they're like, okay, we're gonna call him the Ultimate Solution.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
All right, so I'm looking at this guy who I've obviously seen as Bane in the movies.
Jeep Swenson, yeah.
But I found a photo of him in the ring with everybody else. It doesn't look real. So this is obviously him as Bane, and then that's him.
That's him in World Class, yeah.
In World Class. But here he is in the ring with now these guys aren't small in the ring. This is a real photo. This is not Photoshopped. It looks like someone is just stretched to look bigger than everybody else.
Yep, that's him.
Jesus Christ. Like Zeus is not that's
that was the other guy, Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan was the other guy.
That's probably the smallest I've ever seen Hulk Hogan.
That is Ric Flair. That is not Hulk Hogan.
Oh my God, you're right. It totally is. It's Flair. Yeah, he's wearing
Flair wearing a Hogan bandana.
Yeah, I was gonna say, holy hell, Hogan looks like hell. But that guy is huge.
Yeah, that is the
he's like that era's version of the Mountain.
Yeah, and then he died shortly thereafter, unfortunately.
Yeah,
shortly after the Batman movie. So yeah, they fight their way down these cages. They fight in the ring for some reason. They're having this huge fight in the bottom cage, which has a ring in it, and they just beat everybody up. Hogan and Savage leave all 8 guys laying, and then they're like, "Oh, wait, we forgot to pin somebody." So Savage has to run back in the cage because he forgot to pin Ric Flair, and of course Ric Flair is going to be the one that eats the pin in that one.
Yeah,
can't pin Arn Anderson, can't pin Kevin Sullivan, can't pin Zeus. It's got to be Ric Flair, who I think was the champion at this point, unless he had like just lost it to the Giant. But anyway, that's just that is a footnote in the career of Randy Savage.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, that'll do it for us. We do have some other stuff. Next week's episode will not be live. It'll air as if it's live for you guys at 9:00, but we won't physically be here. It will be pre-recorded. So don't talk to us and get mad at us that we're not answering you because it won't be live. But we will be doing the history of Lex Luger next week. We have a lot of crossover coming up from episodes from past coming very soon. We'll be covering another title belt. Will be the Cruiserweight Championship, which has a lot of same similarities to the ECW TV Championship. Have a lot of crossover.
Swenson never a WCW Cruiserweight Champion.
Yeah, I was asked if we just doing the WCW. We're doing the Cruiserweight Championship, so we will cover a little bit into when it gets converted over to WWE.
The less said about the WWE version, the better.
Yeah, it's not a very long history, but it's there. And then the end of the month, we will do a Royal Rumble pay-per-view, and we're going to be doing Royal Rumble 2000.
That's a fun show.
Any excuse to watch Mick Foley, I'm in.
Oh, he's so good in that match, too.
Yeah, we just dropped an interview as well with Mike Skyros is out. So go check out that episode. Some beer reviews are going to be coming up, and I have a lot of interviews going. If you want to join that membership, there's about 4 or 5 episodes of interviews you can see before everybody else, about 3 beer reviews, and a ton of 5 questions with ABJ that you can check out early. It's $5. So it's like buying me a beer every month. It helps the channel grow. Make sure you hit share, get this out to everybody. If you made it this far, please do that. It helps out more than you know. Word of mouth is how we're going to grow. Start doing some watch alongs again. I did my first Raw last night for NXT for the new Netflix era. I will be here for Friday night for SmackDown, and then I'll be doing Collision on Saturday, and then next Wednesday I'll be back because I'm interviewing somebody Wednesday night, so I won't be able to watch AEW. Ruda Entertainment get your belts all made
Yeah.
from Ruda Entertainment. And make sure you always check out the HCW Network for all upcoming shows. This show actually will air the next day on HCW Network, so they'll get some watch hours. That's how we're going to start doing this. So you guys can go, if people aren't subscribed to us via the HCW Network, we can get some watch hours over there as well. PPW, the 18th, the PPW Hey Bro show, where Matt Riddle will be in attendance because of Ruda Entertainment, and we'll be
our
there
partner.
hanging out with the bro himself. I'll be at the table with Ruda Entertainment, tantalizing Tony and myself, all in attendance working. Lily will be at the table with us as well. So you guys can come and see us at PPW this month. That's pretty much all I got to plug for when it comes to shows and everything going on.
Yeah, that's what I got going. I will be starting that with day bright and early. Spark. We usually do that at 5:15. It's going to be at 5 o'clock. Get that done by 5:30. That's when the meet and greet starts. You can get your pictures of Matt Riddle. You can get your 8x10s. Ruda Entertainment. Mr. Ruda has brought in the PPW Ruda Entertainment Bro title, which will be on the line in that night's main event. Matt Riddle and VSK for the Bro title. It's going to be a big bro occasion.
Yeah. Did you see what the Bro title is loosely based from?
Yeah, the UFC title, right?
The UFC title, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
And
a lot of other fun stuff. I was supposed to announce a match tonight, and I completely forgot. So I'm going to spoil it for everybody here. We were supposed to do it last month. We're going to do it this month. Christian Robinson and Diego Hill.
We're finally
running it back. We're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. We just announced.
We have to personally pick both these guys up, make sure they get there, no car accidents, no craziness. Yeah,
it'll be okay. No, Diego Hill had a scheduling conflict that was unforeseen, but he'll be there, and Christian Robinson is he's going to be there, not just on time, but he's going to be there on Top Guy time. So I think we're going to be okay with that.
Okay, yeah. All right, well, that'll do it for us. Tornado Tag. Thank you guys so much. Once again, make sure you hit those thumbs up, those likes, those shares. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us for another episode. We'll see you on the next one. We're out of here.
Yeah.